All right, guys, welcome back to episode 8, I think.
I
Episode 8
think
or
so.
9. I lost count. There's been so many. Um, Today we're going to be talking about some good news in the sports world finally. It feels like it's been forever since we've seen sports, actually. Bundesliga soccer, German league soccer, played a lot of games yesterday, played a couple games today. I was not up early enough to watch those games, but that's great for the sports world to see professional soccer taking place somewhere. NASCAR was on today, which is great. Their first race back since COVID-19. And just in general, we're hearing some more news about the MLB adjusting their schedule to fit in a season. And we're hearing some news about the NBA and Adam Silver coming to a decision in the next couple of weeks, hearing a lot about the players openly speaking about how much they want to play this season out. So, Ryan, I will toss it to you to get us started with the MLB.
Okay. Yeah, so just talking about Major League Baseball here, they've come out in the last week. The owners, I believe, have approved a plan, both a safety plan and just a general plan for the regular season. And the season shortened to 82 games in the revised plan. It would start in early July.
Mm-hmm.
And with the owners, I'm going to address the major conflict first. The owners and the players have had some arguments over recent days about in regards to pay, and the players don't really want to take major pay cuts because they don't feel like they deserve to get punished, for this everything that's transpired. But the owners are like, listen, we're going to lose over $600,000 per game. Okay, the MLB's come out and they've said with no fans, we lose $600,000 a game. $600,000. That's a lot of money. So
Per game.
it's per game. So that's something that the MLB has to work out. But it seems like hopefully they'll be able to work it out between the owners and the players. And if they do, they've come out and also talked about the safety procedures that they're going to go through. They're going to hopefully have over 10,000 tests per week, which is an insane amount of tests. Which that would be
Wow.
really really good. Um, and I know all the players, just like in the NBA, have expressed like a lot of interest in playing. I know some teams have told their players, they said, all right, be prepared to come back in early July. So it's looking like the MLB is getting closer and closer towards a return at this point. It just seems like it's a money issue with the players and the owners on how to split the revenue. And I kind of wanted to touch on one more thing, Trevor, if you don't mind.
No
Um,
worries. No worries.
it just in regards to something that the MLB, it was reported on the MLB a few days ago. They mentioned that this season the MLB is really, really strongly considering, or they've already decided. I'm not 100% sure about adding a DH for the National League this year. And I
Hmm.
think everyone who watches baseball can agree that this is something that is really the fans have wanted it for a long time. The fans have said, "Why are we having a pitcher who's going to always bat ninth? And why are they hitting? Because one, that's not their main job, and two, it just drains so much excitement from the game. If you're watching an Arizona Diamondbacks game, and all of a sudden you have Robbie Ray up to bat with the bases loaded, it's like what? Really?
It's like, well, great, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you rather have, an actual hitter, up to bat? You'd feel like you have a much better chance. So I think that's long overdue. And I don't know if you wanted to touch on your quick thoughts on like a DH in the
Yeah.
National League, but it's kind of just to me, it's
Um,
been long overdue. So
You explained it really well. I don't follow baseball that much, so this is going to be a very uneducated opinion.
it's okay.
Personally, baseball for me is virtually unwatchable. I get bored by the third inning if I'm just at home watching it on TV. I think this is a small step to making it more watchable and more entertaining. And as you said, when a pitcher's up to bat, it's very predictable, at least for the most part, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
He's not going to do anything with that at bat. Putting in a designated hitter makes it more interesting. And I think it's more threatening for the opposing defense because now they have to worry about all nine batters versus only eight of the nine batters. So I'm with you there, but take my opinion with a grain of salt because I don't know all that much about baseball.
That's all right. And I also wanted to touch on one more thing in regards to baseball. So they did come out and say that they were probably going to do an 82 game season this year, and I
I
kind of
actually really like that.
yeah. So I kind of wanted to touch on that. Like, is that a first of all, is that the right decision? Like, do you think that that's the right call, shortening the season this season because of
Yes,
everything that's happened?
100%.
Okay.
If you shorten this season, you'll be able to finish on time unless
Mm,
something crazy happens in the health situation. But
sure.
assuming as it goes as planned,
Yep.
you'll be able to finish on time. You'll be able to have a normal off season, and then 2021 you'll be able to start fresh, have a full season.
Mm,
Not to mention, shortening the season for baseball will actually, in my opinion, make the regular season more interesting because
Mhm.
now each game is going to be twice as important. 82 games is basically half of 162, not exactly, but basically half of
Essentially.
162 games. So essentially, each game is twice as important as it originally would have been. So I think you're going to see a
Mm.
more entertaining regular season. And I
Okay.
think in a in a time where sports is very uncertain, if baseball can make the regular season more important, I think more people will watch that regularly.
Yeah. No, I mean I agree. It's definitely a really interesting topic, right? Because the baseball season is quite long, right? It stretches from, I mean,
It's too long,
if you
way
include
too
spring
long.
training, which people do attend those games as well. I mean, it's running
Right.
from late February till mid-October. Like
November,
that's, yeah,
November.
November. Yeah, I mean that's
It's crazy. Their
it's a
season is crazy
it's
long.
a crazy long season. So I think the MLB does have to be kind of careful because whatever number they shorten season to this year, I think everyone in the offseason is going to be looking to the next season and saying, is this the number from now on, right? So if they shorten it to 82, I feel like they're going to have a hard time telling everyone, yeah, actually, we're going to extend it up to like 130, right? I feel like everyone's gonna be like, well,
Right.
I mean, hey, these games are more meaningful now. Maybe we just want to keep it at 82. So I do
I
think
think
shortening it is
82
the way
might
to go.
be cutting the season in half, like going forward
Is a little
permanently,
bit, yeah,
seems like a little too much.
maybe.
But if they cut it from 162 games to hypothetically 125 games or
Sure.
115, 120 games, somewhere in that range, I think it'd be I think it'd be beneficial for sure.
Mhm.
But I like cutting the regular season, finishing this season on time while completing it, and having a normal off season for 2021.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So yeah, no, I think we touched on that well, and I don't know if we wanted to, move on to the NBA a little bit. We've gotten some more
Why not? Yeah,
details.
why not?
Yeah, we've gotten some more details in the last week or so. We've gotten a lot of players, pretty much every player, I would say. There hasn't really been a player that's come out against uh, resuming the regular season. So pretty much every player has talked about wanting to come back and play. I don't know, Trevor, like, what are your thoughts regarding the return of the NBA? Like, is it possible? Is it probable? What are you
Um,
thinking?
so I think at this point there's a 75% chance the NBA will resume games.
Okay.
Um, if all else, the player pressure is high on Adam Silver right now because Adam Silver to me seems like the most reluctant one, or seems to be the least verbal about. He's verbal
Least
about a regular
verbal.
season.
Least verbal. That might
Least
be the way
verbal.
to
I
put
think
it.
he
Yeah.
wants, yeah, he wants the regular season to play out, but he hasn't openly said like this is 100% going to happen.
Mhm.
Chris Paul, the head of the Players Association, talked about a few days ago. He wants to desperately play out the regular season and the playoffs. I'm sure every other NBA player, or at least most every other NBA player, feels the exact same way. I think it's hard because Charles Barkley has gone on air and said that the NBA should cancel its season. Steve Kerr has also said that he believes the season is over. So not everyone seems to be sold on playing out this season. But Steve Kerr, coach of the Warriors, they're the worst team in the NBA. Their season would be over regardless, even if they had to play games.
Yeah.
Um, as a fan of the NBA and as a fan of basketball, I am dying for the NBA to come back. It would make the summer so much more enjoyable and fall so much more enjoyable. Watching the NBA playoffs combined with the NFL and college football regular season starting up,
Mm.
and the MLB, even though I probably won't watch the MLB with all that else on. But yeah, I do think at the end of the day, the NBA will play out its season. I'm not 100% sold. Those are my thoughts on it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I pretty much agree. I do want to touch on a couple quick things. You mentioned Steve Kerr, how he said, he didn't think the regular season would go on. He did say that. He did say he did not think it was going to go on, but he did also go on to say that if it was to go on, he'd be in full support and
Right.
he would play out the
Absolutely.
season with no
Absolutely.
question. So
I
I
meant
don't,
that more facetiously, like their
yeah.
season is over, as in they're the worst team in the
No, yeah,
NBA. So
yeah, yeah,
even
yeah.
if they played games out, their season's over. I read that. I read the little quote after that where he was like, "We would play, we would
Yeah, no,
play."
yeah.
So
I
I'm
just want
sure
to
they
make
would
sure
play.
that
Absolutely,
I just want to make sure that
absolutely.
everyone knew that there aren't any players who are just going to like at least that we know of that will just go on strike and just not play, right? So I'm pretty sure everyone will unanimously play. And I also wanted to point out one quick thing, and I know it's not the NBA. This is kind of a little just an anecdote from NASCAR today. I actually watched a lot of the race because there's really not much else on lately, but I watched a lot. And the winner of the race, Kevin Harvick, he gave an interview right after he won, and he gets out of
Mm,
his car and he says, I was in the car and it really didn't seem that different, right, from what it normally is. But I got out of the car and I looked in the stands and it was just empty, and it just feels. He's like, it just feels really weird. And I just thought I don't know if anyone ever has the time, you should go check out that interview. It's a really interesting. It's just like really an interesting perspective on no fans in the stands, and I think that really applies to the NBA because the NBA, right, really relies on fans for games. Pumping up the teams, and home court advantage is a massive thing. So I
I
just think
agree.
it'll be really interesting, and I think everyone, it'll be just really interesting to see, the NBA with no fans. So I thought that was interesting. And just one
I agree.
other little tidbit I wanted to add that as of today, I believe the Rockets are opening tomorrow. So it'll be at least 23 teams, 23 NBA teams will have their practice facilities open, and players are both working out and practicing at the facilities right now. So the vast majority of teams and players at least have the opportunity and like are open right now. So that's also a
Right.
very good sign. So yeah.
For sure. That's a great sign.
Yep.
The other 9 teams that haven't opened up are in situations where they
Yeah. I mean,
aren't able to open because of their health
yeah.
situations. But as you said, 23 teams opening up is a great sign for the NBA.
Mhm.
I think it's a great sign for the players to at least go back and do voluntary workouts, maybe
Yes.
build up some stamina and physical strength that they may have lost in
Mhm.
the last couple months. I don't know. I forgot how many people are allowed. I think it's 4 or 5 players are allowed to be there in the time, or there's a person limit.
You're right.
I
There
know.
is a person limit, but still.
Um, but still, if you can go with a couple teammates, a trainer or two, get some work, and
Yeah.
I think that's great. And I think it'll help when the NBA hopefully gets a full
Mhm.
like mini training camp, and then leads into the regular season. Players will have at least a little bit of I guess, practice under their
Well,
belt.
yeah. I
So.
mean, because you did mention that LeBron said it was a couple weeks ago that he said he'll need at least what was it 2 or 3 weeks of
So this is
conditioning?
what LeBron said. I
Yeah.
remember this was probably a month ago.
Mhm.
He said if they went straight into the playoffs, he said they would need at least 2 weeks of training camp,
Mm.
and yeah, 2 weeks of training camp, like two
Okay.
full weeks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay.
And he actually said like a few exhibition games thrown in,
Well, yeah.
like
Okay.
not.
So I see. Okay.
So basically, what I feel like is going to happen is LeBron and other contenders like the Clippers, and the Bucks, maybe not the Bucks as much because they're a younger team, but like teams that have like experienced veterans like the Lakers, like
Sure.
the Clippers, Kawhi, Anthony Davis, LeBron, those guys are going to use the rest of this regular season as
Mm.
exhibition games to warm themselves up for the playoffs,
Yep.
knowing where they stand in the standings. I think Milwaukee's just a very young team, so I don't think they necessarily need to visualize those games that way. But
Sure.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how the different teams approach the NBA season if we have one.
Mm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It'll be really interesting to watch for sure. And the one good thing that'll come out of it is we'll be able to hear the players a lot more. I know, like for UFC this past weekend, you were able to hear a lot of these fighters like talking mid-fight, and so I don't know. It'll be really interesting to be able to hear these
Right.
NBA players talking during the game.
No,
So
for sure.
it'll
For
just be an
sure.
interesting perspective. So, Trevor, I don't know what you want to go into next. Is there anything in regards to the NFL, maybe, if we wanted to talk about?
Um, well, there's a couple things that the NFL has done.
Yeah.
I should say in the last couple weeks. Most
Mhm.
recently, they came out with Pro Football Focus actually came out with their top 100 players of the last decade. Only reason I want to bring this up is just because I just the list is a little mind-boggling in my personal opinion. Just looking at some of the standings and choices they had.
Yep.
The biggest thing I'm going to take away from this list is obviously Tom Brady should be number one.
Yep, of course.
Um, I think the biggest mistake the list had was a lot of players who are ranked very high
Mm.
didn't play all 10 years. And if it's a list that talks about their dominance over the whole entire decade,
Yeah.
I feel like certain guys should not be as high as they are. One example of that is Patrick Willis. Another example of that would be Calvin Johnson. Great players. Darrelle Revis, another example. He was not, in my opinion, all that dominant most of this decade. Maybe the first half of this decade he was.
Yeah.
Just players like that didn't dominate from 2010 to 2019. And I know you know where I'm going with this, Ryan, but I think the biggest debacle of this list is putting Russell Wilson at 33rd.
Yeah,
That just shows you. I've always been very high on Russell Wilson, but I think it just shows how he is easily one of the most disrespected players in the NFL.
mm,
When he was winning, it was all the Legion of Boom: Earl Thomas, Sherman, Cam Chancellor.
mm,
But when they all leave, it's ironic how Seattle doesn't skip. I mean, barely
Barely skips a beat. Yeah.
barely skips a beat. I mean,
Mhm.
Seattle. I don't think Wilson's had one
Losing
losing
season?
season.
I
Yeah, I
don't
don't think
think
he's had
so.
one losing season. And
Yeah.
here's the most mind-boggling thing: he has not earned one MVP vote since he has been in the league.
Unbelievable.
Not have one
That's yeah.
MVP vote.
Hmm.
And in my opinion, he has probably been the best quarterback, if not the second best quarterback, these last 10 years.
Wow. And I think one thing that I want to point out, in just kind of in support of your argument, is can we talk about Russell Wilson's his playoff track record,
Please
right?
do.
I mean, how many wins did you say? I believe it was 9 wins as Russell Wilson's had
Russell
in the
Wilson
postseason.
has the second most playoff wins of the last 10 years to Tom Brady. And
Yeah,
Tom Brady's the number
and
one ranked player on that
and
list.
I want to point out, so on this list, and listen, we're not this, we're just going through this list for the sake of just some
To
fun
fill in
little
some time,
discussion. But we got Russell Wilson here at 33, and you look up at this list, and there are just quarterbacks up here that are not as successful as he is. I believe they have Drew Brees at number three. At number three, and you put Russell Wilson 30 spots below him. Now, to me, you're telling me that Russell Wilson isn't only worse than Drew Brees, but you're telling me he's significantly worse, 30 spots worse on the all-decade team.
They have
That, to me, that's
Matt
ridiculous.
Ryan is 32. They have Matt Ryan as a better
Wow.
quarterback these last 10
Yeah,
years than Russell
that's
Wilson.
unbelievable. I mean, to me, it's just I don't really know. I don't really know why. I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe just the success has always been put on other players on Seattle. Maybe these other players have just gotten the limelight more. I'm not really sure, but it's kind of ridiculous to
And
me.
the other argument is, oh, Pete Carroll's a great coach, a player motivator. Pete Carroll, before Wilson was drafted, 2 losing seasons in Seattle.
Yeah.
Since
Yeah.
Russell Wilson's been drafted, I think people need to be a little bit more critical of Seattle's drafting and who they've put around Russell Wilson.
Maybe.
He said subpar lines. They seem to draft running backs way too often that don't seem to pan out consistently. They haven't ever really given Wilson an elite number one receiver.
I mean, he does have.
Metcalf could develop. Metcalf could develop into that. Lockett's a solid receiver.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of someone else that was a solid elite number one receiver. I don't think they've ever had
On
one
their
since
team,
Wilson's been
I
there.
mean, they had Golden Tate, but I would argue he wasn't really
Again, though,
a
elite number
solid
one
number one.
receiver,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you gave Russell Wilson, hypothetically, the Browns receiving core, the
Could you imagine?
Cardinals receiving core, the
Mm.
New Orleans Saints receiving core. It's just
Mm.
amazing to me. And he's had bad O-lines for
Yeah,
most of
I
his
mean, they
career.
traded an all-pro center
Mhm.
for a Jimmy Graham who ended up just being a shell of himself. So,
Right.
yeah, it's just you're right. Transaction after transaction, have they really helped him that much? That's debatable.
And I think so. This was supposed to talk about the list a little bit more, but I think we've kind of dove off into. I think the disrespect, and I'm a diehard Cardinals fan. Don't get me wrong. I hate the
Yeah.
Seahawks. I've been to multiple Cardinals games where I'm sitting behind the Seattle bench, and I feel like I'm at a Seattle home game. They are the most annoying, obnoxious fans outside of maybe Green Bay or Dallas that I've ever been
Oakland.
in the presence of. But Russell Wilson is just an incredible player who does things that nobody else can do at the quarterback position. His ability to evade pressure, his ability to escape the pocket, keep his eyes downfield, his ability to make plays on the run, his ability to make crazy, crazy plays out of nothing. Remember that one play against my Cardinals? It was the Doug Baldwin play where he was twisting and turning, got thrown back 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then basically just
Oh.
throws the ball up. Baldwin catches it, runs down the sideline for a near
Mhm.
touchdown. Plays like that, Russell Wilson can just do the impossible.
Mhm.
And I wanted to mention this list just because of the disrespect he's received his whole career. I'm
Yeah.
tired of hearing about how good that damn defense was. It was a very good defense. But the fact that Russell Wilson can win just as much with a below average defense shows you that
Mhm.
he is the true best player of the Seattle Seahawks since 2010.
Oh, no, yeah, without a doubt. And anyone who says otherwise, I think is just being absolutely ridiculous. I mean, and just to give you more context, this list has Richard Sherman at number 4, and that is Russell Wilson at 33. Again, that should just tell you all you need to know.
I
I
completely agree.
find that pretty ridiculous. And I wanted to point out something. I don't want to delve. I guess we can kind of delve off into kind of a little tangent here. But
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Russell Wilson. I don't really think he's underrated, but I almost think that other quarterbacks are overrated. I mean, I don't want to disrespect the players like Aaron Rodgers or the players like Drew Brees, but I mean, you look at
Okay,
their,
it's a
you look
fair
at
argument.
their, but like you look at their playoff track record and how successful have they really been, and also, I'd argue that Russell Wilson's been as successful, if not more successful than both of them. I mean, he's been definitely more successful than Drew Brees, at least in the last decade.
Right.
And
And
Aaron
no, you're right.
Rodgers, I mean, he's definitely up there with them. But I also just want to point out, like, uh, there's nothing Russell Wilson can't do.
Hmm.
There's pretty much nothing that he cannot do, and you don't say that a lot about quarterbacks. Like even Tom Brady, there are some things that Tom Brady cannot do, even in his
I
prime.
completely agree.
Tom Brady
I completely
couldn't
agree.
escape with the ability of Russell Wilson,
Right.
but Russell Wilson just has like that ability, and I don't know. I completely agree with you. He's just
It's an
been.
interesting point you make. Is
Mm,
Russell Wilson properly rated and everyone else is overrated? That's a very interesting
I
argument you
think
make
that might
there.
be fair. Yeah,
I
I
think it's
think
a little
so.
combination of both.
Okay.
I think Russell Wilson is a little underappreciated.
Yeah.
The fact that he's never gotten an MVP vote for me shows that
Yeah,
he's underappreciated.
yeah, he might be a little bit underrated. Yeah, because of that. Although,
Um,
yeah,
but guys like, look, I don't want to say Drew Brees is overrated, but Drew Brees has come up woefully short in the playoffs the
year
last
after
3 years.
year.
No, I shouldn't say woefully short, but he's come up short in the playoffs the last 3 years. Now, a couple of crazy plays happened to them in that situation, the missed pass interference,
Yes.
the Stephon Diggs play. So, yes, a couple of crazy plays have happened. But you have Brees third on the list, Russell Wilson 33rd. I just don't think that's that big of a drop off. Whether or not you agree or disagree with me that Brees is a better quarterback, you can argue that Brees is a better quarterback than Russell
Mhm.
Wilson. But there's no way over the last 10 years, Matt Ryan is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson.
No, no way. Yeah, I totally agree. And I also wanted to point out one more thing real fast before we move on. I mean, I also think if we're talking about quarterbacks, Peyton Manning is a little bit low to me. I mean, he's at number 18 for all decade, and I get it. He's been retired for what is it, three seasons now? I believe 3 full seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a
Yep.
while, but still, I mean, Peyton Manning was absolutely dominant. Pretty much his entire career. He went out on in the best way possible, right? He went out winning, right? And I just think again, you're gonna have him 15 spots below Drew Brees, who I believe, I don't want to get this wrong, he's won one Super Bowl his entire career. Am I correct? I believe I'm
Right.
correct.
2009. He beat
And
Peyton
you
Manning,
and
ironically, but
yeah, and you've Peyton Manning below Khalil Mack, who's been in the league for 6 seasons and is an edge rusher who really had a down year last season. I don't know. There's just a lot of questions on this list, and it helps provoke, a lot of questions and conversation. But I just think, we want to make it clear that there's a lot of players
right.
across this league that are severely underrated, and
Here's the issue with making a list like this, having every position included, because every position does
yeah,
something different. They're not comparable. Comparing a receiver and a quarterback is very hard to do because they do totally different things, have totally
100%.
different skill sets. So that's the issue you run into with making a list like this. Not saying it's a bad thing to do or try to attempt, but there's always going to be some
Yes.
discrepancies. There's always going to be large disagreements just because it's all about do you value the individual talent at that particular position? Because no doubt Khalil Mack is the best at what he does. But how much is that translated to team success where Peyton Manning, he's great at what he does. He's won Super Bowls. Khalil Mack, I don't know if he's ever played a playoff game. Or he has with the Bears, one playoff game
He played one
that I
playoff
know
game.
of, and they lost.
Yep.
So it's that you have to balance that out, but that's why it's
Oh
hard
yeah.
comparing all these different receivers. Just
No, I
I'll
think
go
that
back to it.
was.
I'll go
I'm sorry.
back to it, but Russell Wilson is not the seventh or eighth best quarterback of this decade or whatever he was ranked on this list. I'm throwing up in my mouth as I say. It's disrespectful, but
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
the last thing I'll talk about
I,
on
I
that.
want to
So
say one more thing. I think what you said was really perfect. Just I think that hit the nail on the head right there in regards to, you know, you cannot like compare objectively positions like quarterback
yeah, you can't.
versus receiver versus corner. It's nearly impossible, if not impossible,
It's
because
incredibly hard to
I,
do.
I would argue that quarterback is the most valuable position in this league by a pretty big margin.
Easily,
And
easily,
and
easily.
and and that makes this list, either wrong, either just straight up wrong, or like they just didn't value the positions accurately, right? Because they have these starting
Right,
quarterbacks a lot lower than a lot of these position players, and
right.
that to me shouldn't be the case. But that's just because I
Right.
value quarterbacks really highly. So yeah,
Right.
I think that was a really good point you made about how it totally varies based on position, and it's really really hard to accurately determine who's better. And then I wanted to mention one last thing on this list really fast before I move on. I'm so sorry. But Mike
All
Evans
good.
was
All good.
7 spots ahead of Larry Fitzgerald. 7 spots ahead. Mike Evans was 7 spots ahead. I just,
Yeah, I'm a little angry. I didn't even notice
that
that.
makes no sense to me. And I know a lot of people watching this will also agree with me. That makes absolutely no sense. One of the best receivers ever play is 7 spots lower than a young receiver on a team that's never made a playoff game.
Disgusting.
I
Larry Fitzgerald, also
so,
one of the greatest playoff receivers of all time.
yeah, so
That
even I
argument we'll
think
save for
that's,
another day, but
yeah, but I just thought that was also ridiculous. So
the only thing that would have made this list worse is putting Baker Mayfield somewhere on it.
okay, listen, that was not necessary. I will call it right here. Everyone who's listening right now can call it right here. Baker Mayfield will make the all-decade 2020 list. Okay, not only will he make it, but he'll be in the top 10 for quarterbacks. Okay, you listen right here. Okay, remember this moment,
All right.
everyone.
All right.
Remember this moment.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we wanted to move on. And, as you all know, we did talk about the AFC win totals for the 2020 season last episode. And we wanted to move on this episode and talk about the NFC over under win totals. So
Absolutely.
I think we
I
wanted to
loved
touch
this
on.
game last time,
Yeah, it was
and I can't wait
fantastic.
for more disagreements slash possible agreements.
Yeah, so I mean, how about we just get right into it? I mean, we can start right off with your hometown Arizona Cardinals. Their over under on the season was 7 games.
According to PointsBet, each betting website's been a little different. This is the one I found. The website is actionnetwork.com. So according to PointsBet, as I just said,
Yep.
Cardinals 7 wins over under.
Yeah, what do you
That's
think?
a tough one. I actually think that's spot on. I would push. I'm going to
Okay.
push.
Okay.
I'm going to say the
Uh,
Cardinals go 7-9 this year.
wow. Yeah,
Tough
you know,
schedule, tough division, young quarterback still, and an improving defense.
that's really hard for me. That is really, really hard.
It's spot on. That's a really good, accurate prediction.
Yeah, and listen, I don't want to agree with you too much, but I do agree. I think 7 wins is really accurate. I'm also going to go push here, only because that
Oh,
division is
off to a
probably the
great start.
toughest. I mean, it's the toughest in football,
I agree.
and
I agree.
yeah, they're going to struggle, but they're going to win some games because they do have some talent.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think 7 games is pretty accurate. Actually, no, I lied. I'm going to take the over. They're going to get 8 wins on the
Oh,
season.
okay.
The Cardinals are
Okay.
going to win 8 games just because I think DeAndre Hopkins, is a top 5 receiver on that offense. Cliff Kingsbury is going to be a really nice at scheming him open. Kenyon Drake, somewhat overrated, but he gets the job done. And Kyler
Wow.
Murray, he's going to show out as a nice player, not an elite player. He'll be a top 12 quarterback in the league, I'd say 10 to 12-ish
That's fair.
range.
That's
So yeah, I
fair.
think I think 8
Okay.
wins, third in the division. I think that's what's going to happen. So
All right, that made me smile. I'll take an 8 win season. I would love to make the playoffs, but
hey,
I'm trying to be as objective and
hey,
unbiased
slow
as
but steady,
possible.
right? Yeah, slowly get better.
If the cameras were on me, not on the podcast, I'd be boasting about how the Cardinals are going to win 12 or 13 games this year. So
Oh man, maybe,
the
maybe,
second
maybe.
team on our list, sorry to interrupt, the Atlanta Falcons at 7.5 wins.
The Atlanta Falcons are going to be under that. I think the Atlanta Falcons actually get last place in their division this year. I think it's not even really their fault again. This is another really solid division. I mean, the other teams have really solid quarterbacks and 2 Hall of Famers, and also one young quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. So I just think with Gurley's knee problems, even the offensive coordinator came out this week and he said, honestly, I don't know what the deal is with his knee. So no one has any idea what's going on. So I think they don't have a lot of confidence. Matt Ryan's aging, and I don't trust that defense at all. So I'm going to go under on 7.5.
Atlanta's weird. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go under as well. The weird thing about Atlanta was midway through the year last year, people were talking about firing their coach mid-season. Like he's ruined the team. He's awful. He sucks.
Mm.
And then Atlanta, the last like 5 or 6 games, like played really well. They beat San Francisco. They beat New Orleans. And I allowed Dan Quinn to keep his job. So I would argue they do have some momentum going into the season, and they were very injured last year. But I agree with you. I'm not sold on Dan Quinn as a
Yeah.
coach this year. I'm not sold on Todd Gurley improving that offense all that much. They have a very good offense. I mean, they have good receivers. They lost Austin Hooper, who's a very nice tight end. And again, the division got a lot better. So I'm going to go slight under. I think they're a 6 or 7 win team.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I actually think they're going to be worse than that. I think they get 5 or 6 wins at
Wow.
most. And that's partially because, we're going to move on to the Carolina Panthers here. I don't know. Actually, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to say mine real quick just because
Go
I
ahead.
kind of
Go
transitioned that.
ahead.
Their over-under's at 5.5 wins. I'm going to actually take the over on this. I just personally think that the Panthers are a better team than the Falcons, just because I feel like I think momentum is a really big thing, even in the offseason, and I think the Panthers have a pretty substantial momentum shift, a new young head coach with a new young quarterback, with
Mm-hmm.
a really, really nice young running back. Honestly, a nice whole offense there. They have Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore. They have a bunch of young players. And defense, they're not too shabby either. They got Derek Brown in the draft, and they
Mm-hmm.
have some other young talent there. So I'm going to go with the over on the Panthers, and I think they finish above the Falcons in the division.
I'm not. I'm going to agree with you. I think 5.5 is low for Carolina,
Okay.
but I don't think they're necessarily going to win much more than that.
Okay.
I'm not all that high on Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not sold on him
No, I'm not
winning a
either.
lot of games.
Hmm.
Um, outside of being in New Orleans with a great head coach and a great offense. I think Carolina and Atlanta are both going to be right around 7 win teams this year. I will go over on the 5.5 though. I think that's low for the Panthers.
Okay. Yeah.
The next team on the list is the Chicago Bears. They are 8 wins. 8 wins.
What do you think? You go.
I'm gonna go. Oof, that's tough, man. I would have to look at their schedule. I don't know their schedule all that well. Um, I
Come
don't
on.
love Trubisky, but at the end of the day, they have Nick Foles ready to go, and I do think Nagy is a very, very, very good head coach.
What?
Their
You
defense is
do?
also.
Oh my.
I think he's a creative offensive coach, and he made Trubisky look very good that one season where they won like 12 games. And I think they
Okay.
have a very, very good defense.
Wow.
Um, but the problem is I'm not sold on their quarterback, and I don't think they had a very good draft. I'm a push. I'm gonna say they win 8 games
Really? So,
in a division that got weaker, in my opinion. I'm gonna say 8 games.
well, so I just here, there's two things. So first, I think the Bears go under. I think they go under that 8 wins, just because I really don't have any faith in Mitch Trubisky. And honestly, Nick Foles. I mean, I get he had a terrible roster in Jacksonville, but he was he, he was bad. Like he was bad. He got outplayed by Gardner Minshew. And I don't care how like bad your talent is, you get outplayed by Gardner Minshew, and I
Okay,
don't
you're
have much
right.
faith in
You're
you.
right.
So, and I really don't have much faith in him going to Chicago with an offense that, frankly, is just extremely. It might be one of the most inefficient offenses, if not, it might be the worst offense in the NFL. It was really, really bad, and I don't have stats in front of me to prove that right this second. But I'm going to tell you right now, I do know that Mr. Trubisky averaged one of the fewest yards per completion in the entire NFL. He threw the ball extremely short, did not go down the field at all. And to me, like Nagy, I'm not as high on him as you. I don't think he's that good of a head coach. I think he tried to mask Trubisky's errors instead of trying to, help him expand his game. He really played kind of
Okay.
defense with his quarterback, and I get Trubisky's not very good, but I don't really like that. And it's also worth noting one last thing. I know we're harping on the Bears a lot, but they did lose a bunch of key pieces on defense. I mean, they lost Clinton Dix. I mean, they lost a bunch of other linebackers, Leonard Floyd. They lost, Prince Mukamara, a couple pieces. And they also lost Taylor Gabriel, who was a really solid receiver for them last season in the slot. So they've lost a bunch of pieces. I think they're going to go under for sure. So, yes, I'm going to take the over
Oof.
on
You could be right. You could be right, man.
that.
I like your take on Nagy, but we'll move on from. We can talk
Yeah, we'll
about the
move
Bears
on.
another day.
So,
Dallas Cowboys.
yeah, the
Wow, this is a little
Cowboys.
surprising. Cowboys are 9.5. Ryan, what's your take?
I'm going over on that. I
Wow.
take the
Okay.
over on the 9.5. I've said in the past, the Cowboys are going to win their division. I don't think that division's very good. I think the Eagles. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Eagles. Uh, their receivers are not very good. Again, I mean, did they get T. Higgins? I believe they did. Maybe I'm totally no. They did not. They got another
Cincinnati got
receiver.
T. Higgins.
I'm sorry. The Philadelphia Eagles got another receiver. I don't remember his name, but they have Alshon Jeffrey. And who else? I mean, Nelson Aguilar has been a massive bust. They have nobody else. Wentz is injury prone, has turnover issues, and that defense really isn't very good. They did get Darius Slay. I don't really trust them. So yes, short answer is I'm going to take the over on the Cowboys because I trust their talent. I trust their head coach.
Real quick on Philadelphia, I think they had a decent offseason. Slay, Jalen Reagor, they have Zach Ertz, they have Alshon Jeffrey. So I think their offense, if healthy, will be okay. For Dallas, this is a tough one for me because I don't know, man, because I feel like everyone overrates the Cowboys every year. Dallas has very high expectations, and they don't seem to live up to them all that often.
Does that remind you of another
They
team?
went 8-8 last year. 9.5 for me is a little high.
Wow.
See, they're going to be right at 9 or 10 wins. I don't know if I want to go over under on this. I'm actually back and
Choose one.
forth.
Just choose
I'm
one.
going to go under because I think Philadelphia is better than you think. I think Washington is a little bit better. They're not great, but again, Dallas can lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to. They did that last year. I'm going to go 9 wins. Dallas will win 9 games this year, so under.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So we have a disagreement
And
there.
I'm not quite sold on Dak Prescott. I think he's a little frustrated with Jerry Jones. Not getting his money. Not saying he's not going to have a good year because of that, but there's just too much going on.
Man.
Dallas will win 9 games. They're going to lose the
Okay.
division. Philadelphia's winning this division.
Wow. Okay. So you think Philly's winning the division? That's very interesting. We'll see how that plays out. Next up, we got the Detroit Lions at 6.5 wins here.
Way under. Way under. They're winning 4 games.
Now, while I don't necessarily disagree with you, I think you jumped the gun a little bit. I do think you jumped the gun a little bit. I think you need to remember, they have Matthew Stafford. When he's healthy, he's a decent quarterback, right?
I agree.
They don't
Okay, fair
have a
enough.
lot of help for him. They do have Kerryon Johnson, who also, when healthy, is quite a solid player, who has the potential to be a really good player, actually. And one must not forget, I think they got a future top 5 corner in the NFL in this year's draft. So
Inakuda, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah, you're right. I mean, and I believe I don't remember off the top of my head, they did take a bunch of Patriots players from their defense yet again. So
Ironically, right?
yeah. I don't remember exactly maybe it was Kyle Van Noy. But they
He went
got
to
him.
Miami. I
Okay, he
believe he
went to
went to
Miami.
Miami.
Okay, it's Miami and Detroit who take all the Patriots players. I kind of get them mixed up. But yeah, I think Detroit does go under as well. I think they get 5 wins. They just don't have the talent. But I think in future years they are set up to be. They're starting to, they're starting to build up to maybe a potential wild card spot in a few seasons.
I'm gonna go under. Okay, maybe I was being a little harsh on Detroit, but the reason why I think they're gonna be somewhat significantly under 6.5 is because I think Patricia is very close to losing the locker room. I think
Really?
players are gonna quit on him, and I think Patricia will get fired mid-season. I don't think he'll finish the season as the head coach.
Wow. I mean, I don't think Patricia's a great head coach either. But
I think this is like a transition year for Detroit. Akuda's a very nice pickup in the draft. They have a couple nice receivers. I mean, they have Galladay,
Yep.
Hawkinson, the young tight end. He didn't have a great year last year, but who knows? He could pan out to be well. Pretty good.
Cardinals
Kerryon Johnson showed flashes last year, but his issue
got
is he
hurt.
can't stay healthy. I'm correct. He hasn't been
Yeah.
consistently healthy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go under. I don't think they're a good
Okay.
team. I think Patricia loses the locker room.
Okay. Moving on to the next team, we have the Green Bay Packers here at 9 wins on the season. Trevor,
That's tough, man.
I mean, what are your thoughts on this? They do have Aaron Rodgers. They do have Devontae Adams. They do have Aaron Jones. But what else?
Dude, this is tough for me because I think Green Bay
Mm,
last year obviously overachieved, 12-4. They definitely weren't that good of a 12-4 team. They didn't really beat any. They
you think
weren't
so?
competitive against elite teams. Green Bay. They got blown out by San
Okay.
Fran twice. I think they're going to definitely take a step back. Didn't love their draft. Didn't really like their draft all that much. I think Rodgers and LaFleur have a little bit of a strained relationship now.
Okay.
I've already pushed twice though, so I don't know if I want to push or not. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna push. I'm gonna say Green Bay's 9-7. I'm gonna push again.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna disagree with you slightly. I think they're over again. The only reason I think that is Aaron Rodgers is a really good quarterback, and I think they have most of their talent from last season. I mean, they lost a shell of Jimmy Graham, they lost Geronimo Allison, and they lost Blake Martinez, who was a really, really solid linebacker. But I've mentioned this before. I think linebackers are relatively easy to replace for the most part, and Blake Martinez shouldn't be that hard to replace. So yeah, I think they go over. I think that offense is quite solid. Um, I think again they did need wide receiver help. They didn't get it, but I still think without that they are a really good offense, and I think their defense is pretty decent as well. I mean, they have
Hmm.
Zadarius Smith, and they I believe they drafted primarily defense in this draft, so they are trying to draft for that defense. So I think 10 wins is really reasonable, and two teams in their division are going to be quite bad. So I don't think it's too far
Okay.
fetched.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
The next team, I think we skip a few here. Yeah, the Los Angeles Rams are 8.5. Over under. What's your
Oh
take, Ryan?
wow. Los Angeles Rams. I'm gonna go with under. And this is kind of something that I'm disappointed to say. Like I liked the Rams 2 years ago. Looking like a top five, top three team in the NFL. Had that trio of receivers with an elite Todd Gurley, with an up and coming Jared Goff, with that insanely good defense. And
Hmm.
I think they've lost a lot of it. I think Goff has clearly regressed. I think that McVay is going to have a tough time hiding all of you know, his mistakes. And I think they lost Brandon Cooks. They didn't really replace him. And I think that's a mistake. They lost. I mean, they haven't had Ndamukong Suh for a while. They lost, a couple other key pieces on defense. And yeah, I think that they finished below the Cardinals in the NFC West. So I think they go under 8.5.
I'm with you. I agree. They've lost a
Okay.
lot of talent on both sides of the ball. Their O line has gotten significantly worse. Goff's gotten I shouldn't say significantly worse, but Goff has regressed.
Mhm.
Defense lost a lot of key pieces to either retirement or free agency.
Yeah.
I'm going to go under. Final piece of the puzzle is the division got a lot better, and in particular, Arizona got a lot better.
Yep.
So I think LA could finish fourth in this division, which ironically could be 7 or 8 games, which isn't all that bad. But yes, 8.5 is too high for
Mhm.
the Rams.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's definitely too high. We want to move on to another NFC North team here. We have the Minnesota Vikings at a 9 wins over under. I mean, it's kind of a high
I'm
number
going to
right
go
there.
over. I'm
You're
going
gonna
to
go
go over
over,
to jump the
really?
gun here. I'm going to go over. Yes, they did lose Stephon Diggs, but they did get Justin Jefferson in the first round of the draft.
Okay.
They got the replacement for Xavier Rhodes, who I was probably a little too high on in the last podcast. I should have maybe done a little bit more research on how awful he was that year before.
To be fair, it was just 1 year, but
It was 1 year. It was 1 year. Right. It was
yeah.
1 year. And they got Gladney. So I don't think they got any worse in the offseason. They won 10 games last year. I think their division didn't get any better. I actually think it got worse.
Mm.
I think the Vikings do win the division this year, and I think they win more than 9 games.
So wait. You think they win the division? Really?
I think they're going to outduel Green Bay. I think
Wow.
Kirk Cousins, I think that playoff win
Wow.
against New Orleans was big for Kirk Cousins. It was a game where he isn't supposed to win. He doesn't win a big game like that. He won
Hmm.
it with a good throw, arguably pass interference on Kyle Rudolph, but they didn't call it.
Okay.
Yes, they got slaughtered by San Fran, but San Fran was just a much better team. So I do think Minnesota is going to win the division
You know what?
in conclusion.
You know what? I'm gonna partially agree with you. I do think they're gonna have over 9 wins, but I do not think they're gonna win the division. I think that they lose the split to Green Bay. I think that they probably finish with 10 wins on the season. But I just think Green Bay is a little bit better. They have the better quarterback. I think they have their head coach is a slightly better. I think LaFleur is a decent.
Whoa. I gotta stop. LaFleur, better head coach than Mike Zimmer?
I mean,
Come on.
do you
You
think
can't be
Mike
serious.
Zimmer's that okay? I mean, what is Mike
I
Zimmer
think Mike Zimmer is an
has
excellent.
Mike Zimmer made his team that much better? Like, has he really made his team play that much better? I'd argue that they've played to their talent level. I would argue that he hasn't really done that much to. I mean, maybe I'm insane, but their defense has a ton of talent. They're amazing at drafting. They're amazing at drafting. Vikings are one of the best teams at drafting. I just
The Vikings haven't had a bad year in however many years. They
and
went to the
the
NFC
Packers
Championship
have.
game with Case Keenum. The Packers, okay, I'm not saying, but the Packers didn't have LaFleur until last year,
Yeah, I know. So it's a
and
small
they
sample
got
size.
lucky.
So
They got
yeah,
lucky.
yeah, okay. I don't know.
I think Zimmer is definitely more proven. I think LaFleur
Okay,
is
yes, he's more
not.
proven.
I think LaFleur is the third best head coach in this division. Excuse me, second best head coach. I was thinking of somebody else. I apologize. But I definitely think Mike Zimmer has been very consistent over his career.
Okay.
Excellent at drafting. The Vikings have had a very upper echelon defense. They've had a very, very solid
Yeah. Oh
defense
yeah. They've
for
been
several
unbelievable.
years in a row now.
Hmm.
And look, I mean, if winning 10 games and going to the NFC divisional game with Kirk Cousins is not underachieving, in my personal opinion.
No, it's not
They do have a
underachieving.
great roster around Kirk Cousins, but I definitely think LaFleur is a very overrated head coach. I'm relatively high on Zimmer, and I think the Vikings are just a better team than Green Bay.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's fair. I don't know. I just feel like I'm gonna make this quick, but I just don't really ever have any faith that Minnesota's gonna win that one big game against the best of the best. I mean, can you look
True.
at the
That is a
playoffs
question
and
mark.
can you tell me how they played against the Niners this past season? I mean, it wasn't even
The
close.
Niners made a
And
lot of teams look
and you'll
bad.
argue that the
I
Packers
mean,
got
look at what they
absolutely
did to Green
destroyed as
Bay.
well. Yeah, I mean they got destroyed as well.
Exactly.
But I'm just saying, it's not like I just don't really think that the like you can put the Vikings on a higher pedestal. Um, and I do want to say one of the
I agree.
primary
Okay.
reasons that I think they're going to go over and hit 10 wins is because I think they did fantastic yet again in this year's draft, especially with their first pick in Justin Jefferson. I think he's the second, maybe third best receiver in this entire draft class. I really, really like him.
Wow.
Fantastic all around player. He's going to turn out to be a top, a really nice receiver. Let's just say that. So
I agree.
I
I
really like
agree.
their draft. So,
They had a great, great,
um,
great, great
yeah,
draft.
I think they end up over 9 wins. I think they had 10. And so moving on to another team back in the NFC South, we have a team who is projected to have quite a lot of wins this year in the New Orleans Saints with 10 and a half. 10
Wow.
and a half. Trevor, over or under on that 10 and a half win mark?
Um, it's hard because you look at based on how Atlanta was 7.5. I think they're going to win 6 or 7. Carolina was 5.5. I think they're going to win 6 or 7. Going down the list, they have Tampa Bay at 10 wins. It's hard for me to go over on New Orleans just because
Mm,
the division has gotten a lot better. I shouldn't say
okay.
a lot better, but the
It's
division
got
has
better.
gotten
Yeah.
better.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's three really, really, really good quarterbacks, and Teddy Bridgewater, who has a little unproven, but he's
Unproven.
won. He's a winner. I mean, he's
Mhm.
won some games in the NFL. 10.5, man, that's a really tough cutoff. I'm gonna say slight over. I think they take 11 wins this year, just because I think they're a great team, great head coach, and I think Breeze has a very. I think he has 1 or 2 more quality years left in him.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm gonna make this quick because we've been on this for a while,
Yeah, we've been going a little
but
slow, but that's okay.
yeah, no, I think no, I lied. I think they're going to go slightly under. I think they hit 10 wins. I think the Buccaneers are pretty much. I actually think they're going to win the division. So I think the Saints hit 10
Okay,
wins. I think
okay.
maybe they lose a game to the Panthers or the Falcons. I think they lose at least one against the Bucks. Yeah, I'd go 10 wins. I really like the team, but do I trust that they're going to beat the Bucks when it comes down to it? No, I'd choose the Bucks over the Saints. So I'm gonna go 10 wins on the Saints this year.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, the next team, the New York Giants at 6.5. I'll make this quick. I'm gonna go under. I'm
Mhm.
not sold on Daniel Jones. I'm not sold on the coaching staff. Not sold on their draft after hearing about DeAndre Baker getting arrested for armed robbery. So
Oh
there goes
yeah.
their cornerback they drafted. I'm gonna go under. Giants are a 5-win team, maybe 6.
Yeah, okay. So I would agree. I think the Giants are going to be bad. I think that it's a combination of lack of trust in the quarterback. While he has shown flashes of really nice play, he's also shown
Mm-hmm.
that he can't take care of the ball. And it's also kind of a concerning way of not being able to take care of the ball. He has fumbled 18 times. And
That's
keep
unbelievable.
that in
That
mind.
is
He did not play the full
unbelievable.
season. I believe he started, was it 14 games? Maybe less. Maybe it was 13. And to
I
have
think he started, 12 or 13 games.
and to
Yeah.
have 18 fumbles, that is that's not unlucky. That's not bad O line. That's just carelessness, and that's something that's a little worrisome to me. They don't have a ton of talent at the receiver position.
No, they don't.
And they do have Saquon, who's fantastic. We'll see how Andrew Thomas pans out. Kind of a strange pick considering there was Wirfs and Wills on the board. I think people weren't really expecting Thomas to go first. See how that pans out. And as you said, the
And
draft
Isaiah
is a little
Simmons on
bit
the board.
questionable. Yep. So there's some question marks there. So yeah, I think they go under. I don't really know how much they improved this year.
Cool.
And then moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles, I think we kind of touched on this earlier, so we can make this kind of quick. But
We'll make this quick.
we had 9.5 at the over/under, which to me is really high. I'm going to go under
That was
here.
Dallas's over/under. Eagles and Dallas are 9.5.
Yeah,
I think I said under with Dallas, so I got to go over on Philadelphia. I'm higher on Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz than Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy. First-year head coach Mike McCarthy has not had any time to work with Dak Prescott. I think that will affect the Cowboys early on in the regular season. Don't get me wrong, Dallas has incredible talent at the receiver, all-pro running back. Did lose Travis Frederick to retirement on the O-line. Defense, in my opinion, didn't really get any better. I think the defense is going to be a bit of an issue for them this year, and they did lose Byron Jones in free agency. Philadelphia won 9 games with practice squad receivers. Give them Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz. Hopefully Nelson Aguilar drops a few less passes. Jalen Reagor, nice guy, seems like a decent player. They'll win at least 10 games.
That is the total opposite of what I was going to say.
And Darius Slay. Darius Slay is an excellent cornerback. I forgot about that. Go ahead, Ryan.
Did not have as good a year last year, but he's still solid, I will say. Okay, I'll make this quick. I mean, they did lose Malcolm Jenkins. Correct me if I'm wrong. He went to the New Orleans Saints. So that's a
I think
big
you're right
loss.
on that. Yes, that's true. That is a big loss.
One might say that was the captain defense. Anyway, 9.5 wins. They go under. I think the Cowboys have immensely more talent. I think they're just as. I think their coaches maybe slightly worse, but I think the quarterback's better. I think the offense as a whole is better. I think the defense is pretty equal. The Cowboys might have a tiny9 but it's pretty equal. So yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles go under 9.5. I think they win 8 games. Ugh. Maybe 9 games because of how bad the rest of their division.
Way too low in Philadelphia.
I'm not a fan of Philadelphia. So we'll see what happens. And now we'll move on to the
49ers.
The NFC champions, the San Francisco 49ers. They're at 10.5 wins.
Definitely going to go over.
Okay.
They didn't really get. I mean, I forgot who they lost.
They lost
Emmanuel Sanders.
Buckner.
Yeah.
They lost Buckner to the.
But
Colts.
They did draft Kinlaw in the first round, so people think he's a little overrated. I think it's a decent pick by them.
I have some questions about Kinlaw.
Should they have gone receiver in the first round? Sure, but I think Kyle Shanahan is arguably the best young head coach, if not the best head coach in the NFL. They are angry about blowing that Super Bowl. That was their game to lose, and they lost it. Yep. The division has gotten better. So I'm not going to say they're going to win 13 games again this year, but I do think they're going to win more than 10.5.
Okay. Yeah, no, I would agree. I think they win 11, 12 games. I think they get slightly worse. I think maybe some people are starting to maybe be able to figure out Jimmy G just a tiny bit. Maybe teams, might be able to find some holes in that defense. They did lose an experienced D lineman who was a former first-round pick, fantastic player. So that's also something to keep an eye on. I do agree. I think they go over. They have too much talent. Their coaching's too good.
The one thing with San Francisco is if there's one position they could afford to lose a guy at, it would be D-line. Because their D-line is absolutely loaded.
Without a doubt. I also think it's worth mentioning that Joe Staley did retire
the O-line.
A recurring Pro Bowl tackle who was absolutely fantastic year after year. Was hurt last year for a lot of the season, but that's worth noting because he was really, really good for a long time.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Seattle Seahawks, a team we spent a lot of time on in this little episode. At 9.5 as we wrap up, we only have 2 more teams. 2 more teams after Seattle.
Yep. All right, so
we'll go a little quick. 9.5. Ryan, go ahead.
I'm going to take. I don't know how this is going to work. This is really hard. I mean, I think that they get a wild card spot at 9 wins. It's just there's too many wins to go around in that division. There's just too many.
I know that division is tough, man.
I have the Cardinals at 8-8, and I don't know how the numbers work out, but I have the Rams somewhere slightly below 500. I think I have to put the Seahawks at around 9 wins. That's a lot of wins. So I think Seattle has to go at 9 wins. Now, do I think it's very possible they hit 10 or 11? Yes, because I really like the Russell Wilson. I really like that offense as a whole. But I'll go 9 wins.
I'm just so high on Russell Wilson that even though Seattle isn't really that great of a team, I just think Russell Wilson will find a way to win them enough games. I think I'm going to go slight over. They'll win 10 games this year. I think DK Metcalf showed flashes that he could be a very, very, very good receiver.
Okay.
He got a lot better as the season went on, so I think he's posed to have a pretty big year for the Seahawks. Lockett is a nice receiver. If they can stay healthy at running back, that offense isn't terrible, even though I kind of just ripped on it like 45 minutes ago earlier in the podcast. I'm backtracking
It's
a
a
little bit,
good
but
offense. We'll talk about
I
it
like
later.
Metcalf. I'm going to go slightly over. I'm going to go 10 wins.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Moving on to the Buccaneers, 10 wins. I think you and I are both in agreement here that they're going to be over 10 wins this season.
I don't know if they're going to be over, man.
Oh, really?
I know.
What?
It's a tough division.
Get out of here. He's no way. Wow.
It's a tough division, and
Okay.
it's a very unproven and young defense. And Brady hasn't had any time to work in Arians' system. 10 wins is a lot, man. 10 wins is a good amount.
He will have time. I mean, listen, the facility's open in 2 days, most likely. Like, these teams are going to be able to slowly bring these players back.
True. Okay, fair point.
It's okay. If you want to go under, that's fine. But I think
I'm not going under. I was going to go push.
Okay,
I think they'll win 10 games.
I think they win 12 games. I think that they have an elite offense. Top 5 for sure, probably even higher. That offense, to me, does not have a hole, especially if Ronald Jones can live up to his potential, which is pretty high. A lot of people have a lot of faith in him.
They do have a loaded offense, I will admit.
They
might just outscore everybody.
There's really just no weakness on that team on the offensive side of the ball. And the defense, yes, it has massive question marks, especially in the secondary, but I think that they can stop people enough with that front seven that they win 12 games.
12 games?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, I think
that's a lot.
I don't think they win the Super Bowl, but I think they win the division. I think the Niners beat the Bucs, but that's a story for another time. Final team, the Washington Redskins, 5.5 wins. I'm going to say mine right here. They're going to go under that. I don't really believe in Dwayne Haskins. I don't think he's very good. I think the only talent on that entire offense is Terry McLaurin, and it's just him and no one else.
Scary Terry,
baby. And then Chase Young, however good he is, I don't think he can carry. DNs have trouble winning games for teams. It's just the way it is. So I'm going to go under. I think they win 4 or 5 games.
I'm with you. Complete agreement.
Okay.
Chase Young's great, but I don't think he's a franchise-changing player. And Dwayne Haskins is garbage. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a really, really bad year and got Fields or Lawrence in the next draft.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't disagree. I think something we want to talk about for next time is, who is better suited to go number 1, Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. But we'll talk about that another time. I think we're in agreement on some stuff, disagreed on others. I think that was pretty good.
Awesome.
So I hope everyone enjoyed that little segment. We just wanted to add a little bit of spice to this podcast. Let people know what we think of these NFC teams in this upcoming season, and hopefully next time we post an episode, there's some more sports news coming on. Maybe some more concrete plans for the MLB and the NBA and the NFL.
And 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll see. Hopefully there's something by May 31st, which is 2 weeks from now. I would assume, absolutely.
So we'll have some stuff to talk about then. But until then, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
See you later.